Hello, everyone. Welcome to an Early Childhood Book Chats. We are coming to you today from the comfort of our home during the NTI season, and we'll give you a moment if you'd like to grab a cup of joe, tea, latte, whatever suits your fancy. Today, you will be learning about stories from Amanda Latham. I am an instructional coach. Julie.
I'm Julie Daly. At this taping, I am an instructional coach, but when you view this taping, I probably will be drinking my cup of joe on the beach because I will be retired.
Very nice. Very jealous of you, Julie.
Really. For sure. And I'm Terry McDonald. I'm an early childhood resource teacher.
And I'm Shani Goodwin. I'm an early childhood instructional coach.
And we wanted to start off today just to let you all know, we're going to tell you about a book. A book is a dream that you hold in your hands. So we just want you all to remember this when you are working with children in the classroom. The books are very important. That's what we're going to learn about today. And we're also going to talk about how to extend a book throughout your preschool classroom, whether that's adding materials to centers or planning small group activities and implementing instruction that way. And then we also have Terry here. So she's going to share with us some important ways that we can support our students with special needs throughout these extensions. So please join us and feel free to get comfy and enjoy your cup of joe. So why are books so important in preschool classrooms? Well, for one, they spark a child's imagination and stimulate their curiosity. They also help develop the child's social and communication skills, and it helps them understand change while easing emotions and feelings. Because like we said before, a book is a dream that you hold in your hands. Children also develop and expand their vocabulary by reading and listening to stories. In our Big Day curriculum, there is the Three Little Pigs story. And so we are going to talk about some ways that you can not only just, read the book during whole group like you typically do, but how you can use this story as a springboard into many other activities and lessons throughout your classroom. Okay? And there are 5 domains that we're going to touch on today through the lens of the special ed: speech and language, adaptive self-help, social emotional, both gross and fine motor, and cognitive. So first, we're going to get started with speech and language. So my friend Shani has joined us, and she's going to highlight ways that this is going to look in the classroom, but then she's also going to put on her Eckers lens and let us know how Eckers can also be supported throughout these activities. Take it away, Shani.
That's me. Okay, so when we started doing this, we thought what would be the most useful way for you guys to get something out of this. And so we wanted to give you some hands-on activities, concrete activities that you could do in the classroom to support the books and the children. Back in the day, long time ago, I would take a book and I would use that same book for the entire week. And everything that I did was kind of like a branch off from that book. All the activities we did, math, literacy, that kind of thing. So this is a little bit like that, because I feel like so many times we read a book, we might talk about it with the book sticks, and then we put it away and we go on, and we never really do a whole lot more with it. So the point of what we're trying to do today is how can you take that book, because we've got some really great literature in our classrooms, and what can we do with it? What can you do to expand on that idea? So for small group, I'm going to give you guys a small group activity and then an activity that you can put in your center. So for small group, you could make characters to support the book. You can see these little kids here, they made pictures of the 3 pigs and the big bad wolf, and then they're going to take those sticks and go to dramatic play and retell the story. And so the whole time that you're making the characters from the book, you're having these conversations, you're introducing new vocabulary words, you're just jazzing it all up, you're selling it, and then you go to centers and you're going to act out the story. And while you're there, you might have to prompt the kids to help them remember phrases from the story. But, you know, with the Three Little Pigs, of course you're going to have that repetitive phrase, he huffed and he puffed and he blew the house down, and not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. And so that would be a really great place to start. And I just want to point out to the picture of the kids building with blocks, with the bricks over here, and the big bad wolf has on the fur coat. How creative and adorable is that? And they have on their little mask that they made. So I just love that picture. So Amanda on that picture. She did a good job.
Yes, we definitely had fun finding some pictures. So thank you, Shani. Thank you, ma'am. All right, Miss Terry.
So supporting students with IEPs and collecting data is really not as difficult as it sounds. So we have to remember that speech and language are the platform for which students are going to learn and be able to demonstrate what they understand. So we prepare activities for students to perform as characters in a play. Why not? Because we remember when we engage in an activity, not only building with blocks, but communicating the language, like Shani said, with huffing and puffing. You know, those are connecting things. We never know what one child might remember over another, or what prompts the knowledge and the language and communication. But every child can participate in a play, even if they have very little language. So as I'm saying here, that does in fact encourage and increases their expressive and receptive language skills. Children understand first before they express. So we don't want to dismiss any of those skills. One builds the other. It helps them with sequencing, because The Three Pigs is really a story of sequencing, as were many children's stories. It helps them with their verbal and nonverbal students to be able to engage, so we don't leave anyone out. And so what we're also doing is using a variety of objects. Don't leave anything out of the classroom. When you can manipulate and use tools to help students learn, by all means, I say use anything that's available to you. And now at this point, you know, up to the moment of our taping today, we're in a virtual classroom. And I've noticed that a lot of you teachers are getting children to go into the kitchen, which is my favorite place to find tools and materials for students to be able to engage. In our classrooms, everything is planned out, but at home is when the creative piece begins. So please don't forget to allow parents to dig around in the kitchen and use those kinds of things to help their students develop their language skills.
I am so glad you brought that up, Miss Terry. That leads us into our next topic that we're going to cover. What would that look like at home? And Miss Julie, can you touch on that a little bit, please?
Yeah, you know, like Terry said, when we taped this, we were in NTI 2.0. So, and most of you all have been doing this, some of you since March, some of you since August. So we're used to the NTI platform right now. And if we're on NTI, then great homeschool connections. Gather the things like Terry said around the house. If you look at these pictures, you'll see toilet paper rolls that you can turn those into the little finger puppets. And then the other picture is one of the pig nose that could be also used as a prompt for maybe a family play if you wanted to do that, retelling the story of the Three Little Pigs. And those are just a carton noses. And you know, when you when the students are at home and they have their computers, the Three Little Pigs, the YouTube videos, you could find that story, and the families could listen to the story and pick up where the kids left off at school. Maybe give a little directions if you wanted to on the family page of your Google Classroom. Have the students act out the play. As children, we love performing, especially when we have that attention of our parents or our other siblings, and get the family involved. And this is a great way to connect our home with our school.
Yeah, I think that we have talked a lot about speech and language and how that can be supported in addition to the story, The Three Little Pigs. So next, what do you all think about adaptive and self-help skills? I wonder how that would look if you're using the story, The Three Little Pigs. Shani, do you have any ideas?
A few. So for a small group, we thought maybe teaching the addresses. You could highlight the pig's house, and they had 3 houses, and so they had addresses. And so now you're going to work on the child's address and their house and phone numbers. And you could like have them call the big bad wolf, or call the pigs, or pig to pig, however you wanted to do it. So thought that would be super fun, and that would be the hook. So many times when you do activities with children, you have to find the hook that catches them and brings them into it. And so just adding a little sparkle to it, a little jazz, selling it, you can get the child's attention. And then of course for centers, you're going to want to add materials to your centers that encourages them to build houses. And so for Eckers, you know, item 17 talks about the fine motor and differing ability needs. So like, you know, how you put like fat crayons and skinny crayons. So when you're building a house, the unit blocks, you know, would start there. And then maybe a little more challenging would be the tabletop blocks. They're a little smaller. Or if you're using Legos, you would start with the big fat Duplos. Those would be really easy to use. And then it would come down to the smaller Legos. And then even if you had somebody who was really ready for it, maybe even the little tiny Legos, but they could also, with the supplies like you see in this basket here, add a little something extra to make the houses more jazzed up to encompass that 3 pigs idea.
Shani, can I say something also about this? When you were talking about addresses, you know, remember that this time of the year, teachers are going to start looking at those skills for kindergarten readiness and the embark that are harder, and addresses and telephone numbers are a little bit harder. And this is a great lesson to pull in those kindergarten readiness skills and help the students, because pretty soon it's going to be embark time.
Absolutely, totally agree. So yeah.
Terry, can you give us a little more insight into how we can support children in our classrooms with special needs?
Absolutely. I noticed that we're really going to say a lot about collecting data. And collecting data, there's so many ways that you can teach and observe a student's ability to perform a task. Sometimes it has to be organic. Maybe you have to make an observation on just random and see things that include using their hands. Adaptive skills, as a child progresses and moves to kindergarten, adaptive skills are really how this child demonstrates knowledge. So I can pick up a pencil, I can organize my tools, I can use those other tools that are necessary, using the glue sticks or using color crayons or markers. And so when the students who have specific goals for participating, that would be written in an IEP, task completion and manipulating materials, they can assemble shapes and use various objects to recreate a story and a characters in that story, which again, when a child's hands are busy, I think a child learns so much more. When your hands are doing things, you're not busy doing things that are inappropriate. And so the more we get our students to stay focused, to be able to put their hands on materials, I don't see any reason that they would not increase their attention span and learn how to complete those tasks, because that's what we're looking for. If we give models on how we tool manipulation, pointing to or touching objects for a nonverbal child or a child who is developing those skills, remember, receptive is greater initially than expressive. And so that still applies to a receptive language or a tool manipulation skill over performing it. So we start with the basics and then you work up. That's really the only difference between when we measure the skills of a typical developing child and a child that we consider developmentally delayed. So following those multiple step directions, it teaches more content and it keeps kids organized. So remember, we always have to use tools organically, use the kinds of things that are available to you at home or in the classroom. There are so many other ways other than just the materials that are presented. And again, I'm going to go back because, as we've all said, we're in NTI, but at home, those materials are just as valuable, and a child can go home and make use of them. So remember, I think adaptive skills, hand use, fine motor manipulation, and anytime you can engage a child's hands in an activity, you're engaging their minds. And I think you'll see the correlation for those of you who are aware of the difference between and as the developmental phases go. I'm going to share really quickly. I watched a teacher with a lesson the other day, and she had every one of her students with Play-Doh. She might notice this. If she watches this, she'll know that it would happen to be her, but I think she's an amazing teacher. She used Play-Doh, and they did numbers, and they were building snowmen, and she had her students pinch off a chunk of clay, Play-Doh, and they rolled them into little balls, and I'm looking at these kids on the screen, and their heads were down, and their hands were rolling, and they built snowmen. She'd hold up a number, and that's how many balls they had to make, and they connected them. So not only were their little bitty hands busy, but they were doing numbers, and she was using language, and they were communicating back to her. So it was such a rounded presentation. She was just organically helping them build, even though she was setting the model and she'd hold hers up. And I'll tell you what, a wonderful example of demonstrating how those components fit together. And she did it so well, and every child, IEP or not, was so totally engaged. So it really means a lot to have their hands busy when they're learning.
Definitely. Speaking of hands busy, I think it's time for a drink. Whew.
There you go.
That was a lot of information, Miss Terry. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Love all of it. All right, Miss Julie, take the stage, and how could we see this playing out at home?
Kind of like Terry said, you know, we have materials at school, but we have so many materials at home, either in nature or containers that we can rinse out and recycle for students. You know, I could see possibly a family member having a box of just materials that they can rinse out and throw in there. Or when children go out and play, they can pick up some things that they think are neat or cool and put them in their box for further use. And they could build, as you see in the pictures here, there's milk cartons there. This little person had all three of the houses demonstrated right there. And we can go back to those skills. We can go back to retelling a story, that language that you're going to get with your family, with the parents talking about the story and what happens first, then what happened last. Even asking questions, asking the children, well, what character did you like the best? How do you think this character felt? So different things like that. And then again, this is a great opportunity for the family to practice phone numbers, addresses, being able to communicate that not only to one person, but being able to communicate that through a couple people, maybe a mom, dad, grandma, aunt, but just getting that language in there too.
And you know, Julie, if you don't mind, you just hit back on the idea of communication. You know, answering WH questions, retelling stories. Remember, anytime you stimulate the mind, so you're building things and being able to describe and talk about it. So anytime again, the connecting the dots with the learning and connecting the information across the domains, you just gave a really good example of how that could happen.
Yeah, and I liked how you also said, you know, that they can practice phone numbers and addresses at home, because a lot of times the families don't realize that that is a kindergarten readiness skill. You know, we see it as the teachers, we're like, oh, well, we have to teach it, but that's kind of, you know, difficult to teach. But at home, the families know, hey, this is something that we've been working on, and the children are excited about it. You know, they can build a little house, and they're like, hey, help me learn my address to my house. And I think just the more information we can share with the families too, you know, about some of those kindergarten readiness skills, you know, that's very powerful also.
It is, yeah.
Ooh, social emotional. I feel like we just touched on that just a little bit too when you all were talking about feelings and the characters, but let's dig a little bit deeper into social emotional now. How would that look
Okay.
in the classroom, Shani?
All right, so we were thinking for a small group activity, the teachers could tell a scenario or a little story, and then the kids could draw a picture, maybe on a dry erase board or paper, about how they feel about it. So, and you're also going to use a variety of words to explain the feeling. So maybe your scenario might be like, you wake up and it's your birthday morning. How do you feel? And so we want to get the kids beyond the saying just good or happy. So maybe you might like say you were full of anticipation, yours excitement. And then from there, you would kind of like describe the day like, oh, you're so excited, you're full of anticipation, you know, you get to open your birthday presents, but not yet, because you have to wait for dad to get home from work. So then how do you feel? So then, you know, then you can like, you know, you're sad, you don't want to wait, maybe you're frustrated, you're aggravated, annoyed, all those great words. And so with Eckers, during free play, you want to make sure you use a variety of words, as you already know, if you've had your Eckers observation last year. So we want to make sure we use all those kinds of different words when we have our conversations with the kids. And then in the writing center, you could post a chart, a piece of paper. I was thinking maybe like a piece of chart paper, and maybe you could like copy a picture from the book and ask the kids, how did you feel during this part of the story? So maybe it's like the part where the big bad wolf is like getting ready to blow down the house. You know, how did you feel about that? And the kids can draw their feelings on the chart. And so it could even be the question of the day. I know lots of classrooms use question of the day. You've been using it in your Google Classrooms, and you use it in when we're in person. I've seen you guys post those. So why not, instead of just asking the question of the day, how do we get to school? You know, what color are your shoes? That kind of thing. Why not go back to the book and the characters and ask questions from the story that you've read? So you might, before you do that question of the day, you might want to, you're definitely going to want to have read it at least once, but maybe a couple of times. So maybe it's like the second reading. And again, remember, if it's a good book, you can read it more than once, and I hope that you will. So that's,
I have a question. Shani, I like the points that you make, and I want to go back a little bit on the social emotional. Does this touch a little bit like on the conscious discipline? You know, the information the students and teachers are practicing in the classroom?
absolutely, yeah. And like you were saying earlier, Terry, it's all interwoven. It's not like a checklist, a to-do list of one more thing, one more thing, one more thing. That's the last thing I want to do in a classroom. But
And you know,
it all works together.
and one thing I also want to bring in, Shani, that you mentioned about the pictures. You know, pictures are so important to go along with our words in early childhood, but especially for those ESL students. They need those pictures to help support that understanding of the language. And speaking of the language, when you were talking about the teachers helping the students with their feelings, those teachers are modeling language, and that language modeling that they're doing is, even though they don't really realize it, you're giving a voice to those students, whether they are nonverbal, whether they are ESL, whether they're young, or whether they, you know, might be a little bit shy, but always being able to show the picture along with words, and then expressing ourselves even further helps those students with that knowledge and language.
You know, and let me say too, I was thinking of it a little earlier in our discussion, and when you talk about students who speak another language, I mean, here's a chance to teach I don't know what it's called, but a pig in another language, there's another word, you know, every child's language comes with a definition or a description. And I would take this, if this were my class, if I was teaching, I would call a pig in Spanish or in Nepali, or, you know, I'd get parents, this is another way to get parents involved. So what do you guys call this? Or what's the name of it? And so here we have a chance to expand our vocabulary too. So not every child has an IEP, and we're teaching typical kids. So I would say that that makes it more personal. And I think that would be a good way to introduce and to keep everybody engaged.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. You can definitely see in this picture that we shared here on this slide, they are definitely engaged and loving having, you know, the teacher over in this block center and all the good conversations and sharing and cooperation. Definitely, definitely am loving this picture.
So when a student has those social emotional skills are just underdeveloped. And we have to remember again that those skills involve that student being able to engage with peers, others, not just children their age, expressing and managing their emotions appropriately, probably why the conscious discipline and some of those other social skills that we'll work on, cooperating and taking turns. And so when you're having a play, we're taking turns. If we're building things and I'm making one and you're making one, we might be sharing materials. Two children who are building and having a good time are engaging well, and they perform and become models for other students. We have social narratives. So in a social narrative, Shani talked about emotion. We just looked at how to express yourself. Social narratives really are things to be able to help us express ourselves. So, you know, you've got the story of the three pigs. They all had to have some type of emotion because they were expressing change throughout this the story. So social narratives are tools that can be used, pulled from a story. Shani said, we're going to talk about how did that make you feel when things were going on. So now we're asking children to describe how they should respond to difficult situations. So now we're going to kind of generalize a story into an everyday experience. Having classmates make a short narrative about how they would solve a problem in a story. Three Pigs is a good example. There are multiple stories that I could think of that kids could say, this is what I would do. And so here again, you're getting a chance to express themselves. You're talking about how they feel. We're learning how to socially communicate and work with others. So I think this is also a part of an IEP, expressing, engaging, participating, sharing, taking turns. A story is a big way of being able to do that. And I think that we don't want to overlook or overthink how you gather information when you're collecting data. But moreover, you're collecting information so that you can proceed to help a student get to the next level, how to make them socially appropriate in a school environment or, you know, at home, because we do take data from students who are engaging with their peers at home right now. Again, we're still referring to NTI or to daycare.
Definitely. And when you were talking about conscious discipline, you know, a big critical piece is bringing that home as well, and, you know, sharing with the families. I know a lot of the teachers have shown videos and done it in class where they do the roller coaster breathing, and, you know, where it's like, take the breath in, now take the breath out, take the breath in, you know, so having, you know, children bring those strategies home is super powerful too. What do you think, Julie?
Actually, yes, that's just what I was thinking. You know, as teachers, we really try to help students understand their feelings and to identify those feelings, and then how to help us cope with those feelings. If they're feelings that might be, you know, anger or frustration, things like that. So I know throughout school, you know, 4 times a year we do have family engagement, and that sometimes, or all the family engagements have some kind of connection with the social emotional component. But it's also a great thing to keep reminding parents and giving them suggestions and giving them strategies on how to teach some of these skills at home. For example, here, connection to the story. They can have their kids practice the big bad wolf breathing if they're feeling frustrated or they're anxious or nervous. Well, let's take 3 or 5 big bad wolf breaths in and out. Let's do it together and see how we feel. And then talk about, how did you feel after that? Did that help you calm down? You want to do it again? Or you can even take little piggy breaths and take 10 little piggy breaths to see how they feel. But still connecting that, but then giving those children the the strategies to help calm their emotions down if that's what needs to happen.
Can I say something? So I feel like a lot of times parents want to do the right thing, but they don't know what to do. And so I feel like all these things that we've been talking about, these home and school connections, and especially this conscious discipline breathing, sometimes I wonder if parents realize that that would be a good tool for when a kid is throwing the temper tantrum in the store. You know, they didn't get their way, to help them to de-escalate and to calm down. They're fighting with their brother. So sometimes I feel like we really have to point out to families that we can do this anytime. This is a good way to calm down a situation, and just remind them. I know when I had young children, you're like in the thick of it, you know. The days are long, the years are short, or however that quote goes, and you're in the thick of it, and you're just trying to keep your head above the waterline, and you forget. And so it's kind of nice when somebody says, hey, try this when this happens. It might be helpful. Try doing this activity to help your kid learn blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. So maybe sometimes you might need to point it out.
That's a perfect, I like how, I'm glad that you said that. And I'll say this, that NTI to me has been a blessing and a whatever. I'm not going to call it a curse. But as a blessing, what I've seen is I'm able to observe parents engaging with their children, which any teacher, if you look at it, you learn how those students are responding. You kind of learn the dynamics, if you will. And so when I watch this platform, it gives me a chance to be able to say, hey, Mom, I got a tip for you. Let me tell you, back to your conscious discipline, breathing and taking your time. So to me, this is also a way for us to teach parents how to engage with their children, because now you're looking at it. And just a little tip, or having parents observe when the students are doing these exercising, how to relax or how to make transitions. I'm appreciating that part. I really am, and I'm taking advantage of it.
And just to know that it's okay to get mad. It's okay to feel frustrated. You know, we all have those feelings. We all have those emotions. And I think a lot of times as a parent, you don't want to see your kid upset. You don't want it, for them to display negative behavior. Right. But teaching the families, that's okay. That's normal. Now what do? We calm down. We cope. We find what works. Mm-hmm. So yeah, definitely lots of good discussions going on here. Ooh, gross and fine motor. Look at this cute little piggy race. Ooh.
I know. I thought it was a cute picture too. So for the small group activity, we thought you could roll a dice. If you don't have a dice, then you could just take a Kleenex box, cover it in paper, put numbers on it, what have you, and then they could roll that. And then you could talk about, what kind of steps would the big bad wolf take? How long are his legs? And then the piggy, what kind of steps are they going to take? So they're probably going to be short little legs and short little steps. And the big bad wolf's going to have these big, long steps. So you could talk about those kinds of things. You could talk a little bit of measurement while you're doing it and counting. And then you're doing the fine motor, the gross motor, but you're still having those conversations, which are so critical. In the art center, you're going to put out a variety of materials that you can see there. So you could put out, maybe if you had some straw, maybe you took a nature walk. Your school has some land and trees, and you could find little twigs and sticks that they helped collect, which would be so great for Eckers. And then you put it out there, and they're going to tape it on their houses when they make their houses. And again, for art, that's going to reflect your theme, which is a good thing for Eckers. And then also they're going to do more complex things. They're going to be gluing and taping that down. They're going to be cutting out their house. You're going to be showing them those things and demonstrating to them. And so that's for art, I think that's on 7.
Oh yes,
we love
7.1. So
yes, we love 7.
Yeah, we love 7.
We're getting a little silly. I think this coffee's getting to us.
Yeah. Well, Shani, you said about everything I could think of when we talk about fine motor, and I'm such a proponent of hands-on. I like that nature walk concept. You know, why not? That gives kids a chance to think. You can just expand on a nature walk. There's so much in our environment that students can collect and bring back in. We kind of got to get over dirt and bugs because sometimes those are the lessons that children pay attention to the most. Any child plays outside is going to do those things. So fine motor supports, again, that adaptive performance. You know, back to holding the pencil, but there's so many other things that you can do. Using tools appropriately, manipulating, organizing, completing multiple step tasks. This is very important. Those motor skills we've already talked about, walking, jumping, skipping, running, playing outside is really a big deal. But when you talk about fine motor skills, remember there's so many things that we can do with our students that they can enjoy, and doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, something out of the kitchen. Again, I like the word organic, because when a child's hands are engaged, they're learning, they're really getting things done. So don't omit the mobility and the movement of other students to be able to provide supports to one another. And again, if we're collecting data, this is a perfect way of being able to do that and engage those children who have the most difficult time participating and paying attention.
And when we make it fun, you know, it's just like you said, it happens organically. I think bringing the fun into it. And these are definitely some fun activities that can be done at home also. Don't you agree, Miss Julie?
Yes. Who does not love crafts at home? Yeah. So in that box that you encourage your parents to have, putting recycled things in there, you know, definitely they can rip up paper with their little fingers and shove them in a bottle like they are here to make a pig. Or still, they're using those fine motors when they make the little pig houses. Large motor, the whole family can have a race, or maybe a friend in the neighborhood. They can have a race with, there's two examples here, freeze tag or Mother May I. Or they can even do, like Shani said earlier, the wolf steps or the piggy steps. All of those are great things. And then, you know, to even farther along the fine motors, I mean, you can encourage your parents to let the kids help fold their socks, fold their clothes. They can pass out silverware when they are doing setting the table. Anything like that they are using their hands or using their bodies to do is going to help improve that fine and large motor skill.
Yeah, definitely. Our neighbor has a 4-year-old, and when they were out playing Mother May I, it just brought me back to my childhood, and it was just so much fun. So I thought that would be a great way. Instead of Mother May I, it could be Wolf May I or Piggy May I, and you know,
great idea.
Mother May I take 3 giant wolf steps.
Yeah.
So you know, that was just definitely that you could really play it up, you know, either at home or in the classroom as well.
There you go.
Ooh, we're getting to the finish line here. This is our last domain, cognitive. And like we've been talking about, all of this stuff just builds and builds and builds upon one another. But this is definitely, you know, a good one to end on. Don't you think, Ms. Shaney?
Absolutely. So for cognitive, group projects over the course of several days, they could make the 3 pig houses, they could work together. And so, you know, that's one of those Ecker skills or peer interactions, and that, you know, they're working together on that group project. I think that one might be a 7 also.
I was kind of remembering too. Well, a little rusty, but yeah.
Yeah.
I think you could get some good points for that one.
Yes, you do, definitely. So they could build this little house together for cognitive, and then they even like added labels, so they're writing. So, you know, maybe some kids are better with the gluing and some kids are better with the writing, so they would work together on that. And then in the block center, you would want him to build houses, build the pig houses. Maybe you're going to build a house for the wolf so he can have his own house. So he'll quit blowing down everybody else's house. Bless his heart, he just wants someplace to live. It's cold. So you're going to build a house, and of course, you're going to add your measuring tape and talk about measurement while you're building your house. You're going to like draw some blueprints of what you want the house to look like. Is it a 2-story? Is it a ranch? What do we got going on here, folks? You can add some words to it. That's a 7. We like the 7s. So
We do,
yeah.
we do. I wonder
You could assign roles, the engineer, the artist, the builder, all of those things that would also help with
And yes, and great vocabulary there too, Miss Julie.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I was just noticing in the pictures had a little toolbox with some little measuring tape in there. Kids love it. They will eat it up with a spoon.
And ask for more.
They probably will. Now I think you're getting into Goldilocks. I don't know. I think you're jumping fairy tales.
I might have.
And you know, you just talked about proper tool usage. I've seen students be able to use the measuring tape, but some of them have no idea. So we have to remember, when you put tools in a center, you have not to assume that everybody understands it. You know, you watch your little ones that dump things all the time. I want you to remember that when they're dumping, they're doing it because they don't know what else to do with it. So I give you a puzzle and you don't know what the puzzle is, you dump it out and you walk away. So remember that proper tool usage is critical, because if I don't teach you how to use the tool, then I'm going to use it inappropriately. Despite your concerns about my misuse, I need to be taught. So your cognitive skills, and everything we've talked about is going to reflect your cognitive skills. It really tells you all those other skills: communicating, social, adaptive, fine motor, gross motor. It all boils down to where my cognitive skills are. So we rely on the strengths of the child's adaptive, social, motor, communication skills to measure their cognitive performance, what it boils down to. So it just simply means that they need to be able to recall, identify, participate, match, retell, ask, and use the tools. And that's what we're getting to. This is where the cognitive, why we saved it for last. So they're attending, doing repetitious things, which we just talked about, how to do it over and over in various ways to be able to accomplish that. How you demonstrate by giving them models. If I don't give you a model, I give you, ask you to do a task and I never show you or give you a model. Well, sometimes I don't get the model the first time. So what we've all said is you got to do it again and do it again, and like you do it all week and keep teaching. This helps them understand how to participate. So you'll hear this a lot if you write IEPs and you read through them, those supplemental aids and services. This is what we're doing. We're just providing them with those resources and tools. And it's just not for students with an IEP. Everything we've talked about is good for any child. It just simply needs to drill down a little bit more on a student who may have more difficult learning skills or have some delays that need more time in. And so this proves that we need to be able to do that. So I say that a good story can go a long way. Shani said that earlier, and I think Julie, we've all talked about it. A good story can go a long way. You can do so many things with a good story that just with a little bit of creativity, and most of our children are pretty adapted creativity, we can do an awful lot of things. And I know you guys have been watching me build my person here. I just want to bring that up before we finish our coffee talk.
Oh yeah, our sequencing. Yeah, that picture here is showing some sequencing, and then you've been doing the steps right along.
Yeah,
I see what you did there. Very sneaky.
What can I say?
You're all that. Ooh, and here's more sequencing. Looks like we can do this at home too, can't we?
Sure can. We can sequence anything. So this shows that, it helps the family focus on retelling a story. The child can put pictures in order. These pictures came from a website. The link is going to be in the resource that the parents could possibly even pull up. Or if you're in school, you could send it home with the child so they could do it with their parents. But it's just helping the parents to see with the child how to put the story in order into sequence. And the cool things about this stuff is, once we give this to the parents about sequencing and they know that, oh, that's something they're learning in school, then they can take that skill and carry it on to anything else. They can sequence their ingredients to make macaroni and cheese. This is what we do first. This is what we do next. We can sequence bedtime routines. First, we're going to take a bath, then we're going to brush our teeth, then we're going to get our jammies on and snuggle up and read a story. So anytime we can give these skills to them, and hopefully the parents can extend. This one here is great because it even brings in science, and it is also about charting what objects can blow easily in the wind and which ones don't. If you look at this picture, you can see all of these are items that could either be found in the house or around the house. And it is also a way to get kids to predict, will the wind blow it? Let's see, what do you think? If those questions, kids answer it, help the students with the answers with which language modeling. But then it also is great for the families to have that project together. This is something Big Brother can help, or Big Sister or cousin or whoever it is can help with.
And Julie, I like the way you mentioned sequencing. I'm just going to be brief. You said a bedtime routine. I'm a huge proponent of sequencing in that way. But a bedtime routine, you said brushing your teeth. That requires a sequence all by itself. I don't know if you think about when you brush your teeth, you just don't go to the sink with a brush and it happens. You got a couple of steps to get it all together to go through completion. So even when you think of multiple step directions and sequencing, it can get real technical or multiple. So we say follow 3-step directions, but really think about it. If you were, like you said, if I'm going to make macaroni and cheese, I got a whole lot of things that I need to do before I'm eating. So I like the way you brought that up and sequences this. It all boils down to being some of those essential skills and practice.
Definitely. Oh, well, look at this. Hold on, let me get my little,
Oh my goodness.
my coworker.
No, we're at the end? Seriously?
We're getting, yes.
Oh, I'm going to bring my friend back for a cameo.
Go right ahead. Does your friend have something to say? Let's see.
Have a nice day, and I hope you guys enjoyed our presentation. Don't forget to be creative and make it fun.
So we want it to end. We're not going to play this video, but just as a reminder, we've talked a lot about having fun and being engaging and having those hooks to really get the children to enjoy learning. So remember to have fun. And this, is a fun little animated story song of the 3 Little Pigs. But next, you're going to like this one, hopefully. No, this one. Here is our resources that Julie mentions where you can find the sequencing to share with the families. But then also, before we go, do you know what? I think it's getting to be about lunchtime. What do you think, Shani? Do you have plans for lunch?
I'm starving. I could go for a big old BLT sandwich myself.
Oh. Megan, I see what you did there.
Ribs, barbecue ribs.
Cheers, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.
Bye. Thank you.
And in the words of Porky Pig, that's all we got, folks.
That's all, folks.
It was so good. We're going to have it again.
That's all, folks.
Brings you right back to Saturday morning in front of the TV with your cereal.
It really does.
Yeah. All right. I think we're still recording.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we are. Goodbye again. For real this time.